Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this Red Gaming Tech.com video, we're going to be discussing as well as analysing tech news which, as usual, has popped up in the past 24 or so hours. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. We have a ton of stuff to get through in today's video, which we'll get to in just a second. But first, a quick plug so you can skip about 20-30 seconds if you so desire to get to the news. There will be another video uploaded today, which is a podcast. It features Intel's graphics Bob Duffy, as well as Matt Hargett, who is a former PlayStation employee. He's now working at Roblox, and we discuss tons of cool graphic stuff. We discuss the Nanite from UE5, down porting to lower spec hardware, virtual reality, and lots of other cool stuff. So if you're interested in game development, and, kind of what goes on behind the scenes, you should check out the podcast. With that said, let's get into the news. And I want to begin with AMD, specifically some confusing stuffs with the next generation of RDNA. So RX 6000 series will officially be announced on the 28th of October, and we of course expect AMD to reveal a ton of stuff for this. And honestly, I'm just can't be happier that finally we'll know what the hell AMD are really working on. I also suspect that folks who are currently debating between, a 3080 and just waiting would also just love to know what the hell is being worked on in AMD's labs. But there is a lot of conflicting information with RDNA 2, and I know this is deliberate from AMD. I'm hearing from multiple people now, even AIBs are actually given misinformation. So it's very difficult to get things 100% on the next generation cards. With that said, I do believe that a lot of the info that I've leaked is accurate. But one thing that does seem to be a bit of a mystery is the memory configuration for the second generation cards. So 0x22h on Twitter has stated that from the information they have received, all Navi 21 GPUs will use HBM. And this is also backed up by Yuko Yoshida on Twitter, where they state that the 256-bit, we'll get what that is in a second, is running in emulation mode, therefore it's most likely some type of HBM2. Basically, what the 256 is referring to is recently we've also seen several patches and updates for OSs, Linux for example, which does reference the number of shader engines and all this other stuff, but we also have references to 192, which seems to be the lower end Navis, and the 256-bit, which is the higher end Navis in terms of memory bus width. And this seems to line up very well with what my source told me. I was told it's GDDR6 with essentially like a big cache on board, which AMD are dubbing Infinity Cache. So it's interesting because obviously these two things seem to conflict. I messaged my source again to ask them whether they are certain about the non-use of HBM2 and whether it really is GDDR6. I got a response back, yes, they are certain it's GDDR6. They believe it's the Infinity Cache which is causing the confusion for the chip. I want to stress I am not leaning over Lisa Su's shoulder to see the block diagrams of these GPUs, but this source has provided photos, has been very accurate in several stories in the past. Furthermore, on top of all of this, they've also given me other information for RDNA 2, which seems to be accurate at this point. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. However, I am reporting this story because I want you to have all of the information so you can make decisions. And I also think it's imperative, even if I was told this by Lisa Su herself at DM, and literally in a video call, until something is official, I always take it with a, well, okay, but does it really exist? Or is it really exactly how we think it is? Personally, I think that this leaves us with a couple of possibilities. Possibility one is that my source is right. one thing that my source did mention, and I have mentioned this a couple of times in the videos, is they do believe that there is a HBM2 version of this card in existence. However, they believe it's not necessarily for gaming. And this is also something that Rogame has mentioned several times in the past as well, that it's possibly for prosumer work, maybe only for Apple. But long story short, there is a variant of HBM2, but it's not for gaming. The other possibility is that my information from this source is wrong and it really is HBM2, which you would assume therefore would mean the lower end cards wouldn't use HBM2. The issues I have against that are a couple. One, it would make the cards more expensive, and I'm hearing from multiple folks that AMD want to undercut Nvidia. So it's like, I don't see how they're going to undercut them if they have HBM2. To be clear, I am hearing that RX 6900 is not cheap, but it's still going to be cheaper, from what I'm hearing anyway, than, say, the 3090. The other negative about that as well is that you would also assume at this point that this would be less likely, because AMD have made a couple of statements in the past that they are more focused on traditional memory at this point for graphics, and HBM2 is for gaming. But then again, that wasn't today, so who knows what can happen in roadmaps, or they might have simply been giving misinformation. It's very, very confusing. So I think at this point, the most logical options are that my information is wrong and it is HBM2, and the lower end SKUs use GDDR6, but then that would mean that the pricing information is probably wrong as well, and it seems to conflict with tons of other reports. The other theory is that it's only for prosumer work, and my information is correct. Or another possibility is there is no HBM version, and it is only GDDR6. So again, it's kind of a mystery. I am leaning towards GDDR6, but as always, you should just, take everything with a grain of salt until it is confirmed. And also, I'd like to mention that given I kind of stalked them about this HBM2 situation, I asked them, what about release dates and stuff like that? As you are almost certainly aware at this point, it's going to be the 28th of next month that we see the cards revealed. But to what I was told, the plan at the moment is the 9th of November we will see media reviews, and the 11th is when we will see the cards available on store shelves. I was having this stressed to me though that the dates may change slightly, but that is what they're aiming for at the moment. Obviously, if there's shipping delays because of cough that's going around, and that did happen with Nvidia, they had to push back the embargo date of the RTX 3080. I know for a fact, actually speaking to Nvidia UK, that my shipment was actually supposed to arrive today. This week, not today. Actually earlier this week, but it was pushed back until next week because of issues they've had. So I now have an MSI RTX 3080, so I'm starting my review process of that. It's really powerful. The RTX 3080 is actually a monster. I'll be doing a full video, some gameplay stuff and some fun stuff as well, of the MSI card, which is a Gaming X Trio. And I will also be doing a full kind of massive set of tests with the Founders Edition card, which I receive next week. But I'm not kidding. The card is so fast, especially with hardware-based ray tracing, that 2 or 3 times I disabled hardware-based ray tracing and then toggled it back on. And was like, is this actually working? Is it on? Oh, okay, yeah, the frame rate is dipping. It's so fast, it's actually ridiculous. Compared to Turing, Ampere is like, it's monstrous. It really is. So if RDNA 2 really can compete with Ampere, which is what I'm hearing, that would be crazy. But anyway, getting back to my point, the 11th seems to be the general availability target of these GPUs. That would kind of make sense to me. AMD do generally like to wait a little bit after the conference for the cards to be on store shelves. So I personally think, you could probably make a good stab in the dark guess that early to mid-November is when they were targeting anyway. And again, a couple of days prior for the reviews to go live also kind of makes sense. So it does sound about right to me. Worthy of note too is that AMD seem rather happy about the about the number of SKUs they'll have available. Frank Azure over at AMD actually states that they will not be having a paper launch of the RX 6000 series, so hopefully there will be a plentiful supply and we don't have bots or anything else which start to gum up the works, as I'm sure you'll agree, it's been rather frustrating for many individuals. Also, I'd like to discuss something PlayStation related. There is a fascinating piece of research done by superdataresearch.com. I'll link it in the video description. And there are a bunch of games and sales figures which are actually plonked down, including earnings figures. But the thing that I find most intriguing here is Horizon Zero Dawn. There was a lot of discussion from folks. How well will Zero Dawn actually sell on PC? After all, it's been on the PlayStation for a while. It's not like it had been out a couple of weeks. It has been, it's an older game now on the PlayStation 4. But it's sold ridiculously well. It's sold over 700,000 copies in the first month, which is bonkers. It's about on par with The Witcher 3, according to this research, and according to them, they don't give a figure, significantly larger than Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Furthermore, Death Stranding sold just a shade under 500,000, so 477, and that was available in July 2020, which was obviously about 8 months after the PlayStation 4 exclusivity. So this really does indicate why Sony have recently stated that they are looking to bring other PlayStation games to PCs. I don't think it's going to be every game before anyone starts cheering. I think that Sony will still be more selective than Microsoft's strategy. But the reality is, games are becoming so expensive to produce, and ecosystems are so important to have flourish. I think that releasing a game, and this is an example, this is not a leak, I want to stress this is not a leak, but releasing a game like, I don't know, God of War on the PC, what harm is it? I mean, yes, it's going to anger some fans, but in terms of Sony's perspective, you're going to get a few people mad, but the reality is, it's not going to harm anything. It's not like God of War is still selling amazingly well on the PlayStation 4. So, even if they were to release God of War Remastered on the PS5, and again, I'm not leaking that, I'm just giving an example, it doesn't hurt anything for Sony to also release God of War on the PC. Because they know it's going to sell well and it's getting them money. And given at the moment Microsoft are just throwing their weight around in the industry, I think that Sony need as much cash and as much, what's the word? I guess the best word is excitement and kind of knowledge of their IPs as possible. Because otherwise, Microsoft can just kind of start to push them out of things. You want your IPs to be seen and be excited for by as many people in the industry as possible. I don't think Sony are going to use this strategy with every single game, but I think certain select titles are a very good candidate. While I've got you here, figure we might as well discuss Bloodborne and also Metal Gear Solid. With Bloodborne, I was contacted by Lance MacDonald. He's well known in the Bloodborne community. I believe he's the author of the 60 FPS unofficial patch for the title on the PS4 Pro. Unfortunately, Sony never actually patched it, which I find kind of annoying. He messaged me and said that he doesn't believe that Bloodborne is getting a remaster, and he knows a lot of people who work at From Software, and he believes, again, according to what he's told, that there's no actual Bloodborne remaster which exists. I reached back out to my original source and asked them, how certain are you of Bloodborne existing for the PS5 and PC? And they told me extremely certain. Now, this source has been accurate in the past several times now, but I am telling you that Lance has reached out and told me no, because I, again, want you to be armed with as much information as possible. As always, until there's an official announcement, you should proceed with the notion that it's nice, it's cool, but pinch of salt. I also would like to stress that I'm not the first person to leak the existence of Bloodborne. In fact, I kind of mentioned it in passing a couple of times, and then people are attributing that to me. There was another YouTuber, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name, who actually mentioned this way before I did. But yeah, to my knowledge, it seems that Bloodborne does exist, but I've not played the version, so I'm just going by what the sources told me. Because they have been accurate in the past, I tend to give people a benefit of the doubt if they've been accurate previously, but Lance is also quite well known in the Bloodborne community, so you do have to also give him some respect. So again, I'm going to leave this down to your decision, and personally, I'm taking things of hopefully it exists, because I was speaking to Lance, and there's a couple of big things that they could easily fix with Bloodborne. The first would be the number of blood vials. If you kind of die on a boss and you're left with like 0 blood vials and no bullets, it's very frustrating. So I think some quality of life changes would be great. 60 FPS. Also, with the remaster, a lot of people are getting confused because obviously Sony are doing the deal at the moment with PlayStation, where you can get like the older PlayStation 4 games, and they're kind of like, so you can hit the ground running with the PS5, and they said, well, why would they just kind of remaster it if that's the case? To my knowledge, from what I was told anyway, it's not just a straight kind of upsample with a few extra shiny graphics. There are some additional areas that are worked in with kind of changes, because obviously some of those areas were cut, some of them because they just didn't fit with the theme of the game, and others because they just had time constraints. So I was told that the game is more padded out and it's got all of the DLC, but again, at the end of the day, it could be incorrect. Another thing, and several of you messaged me about this one, Metal Gear and Metal Gear Solid 2 Substance have all been rated now for the PC. This was spotted by Jimatsu, and this is in Taiwan, just to really stress here, and it seems to be that these are ports and not remakes of the game. Now, I want to quickly go over the fact that I was told that Metal Gear Solid 2, 3 and 4 definitely were having ports. I had thought Metal Gear Solid was having a port. I didn't know anything about Metal Gear, just to be honest. However, to my knowledge, Metal Gear Solid Remake does exist. However, I don't know how far along in development it is. From what I'm kind of hearing through the grapevine, though, Konami weren't really wanting to put out Twin Snakes. Apparently they weren't that happy about it. I'm going to really be honest with you guys, Twin Snakes is kind of a weird game for me. I actually bought a GameCube. One of the big reasons for it was actually to play Twin Snakes and a couple of other games. But for some reason, I don't know, like, I saw it in the shop once or twice, but I was quite young at the time, I was broke, I couldn't afford the game, and then whenever else I had the money, I just never actually saw it in the store, and obviously online shopping wasn't such a thing, so it's one of those titles I just never actually got around to playing, Twin Snakes, so I can't make a judgment of the quality. Some people seem to love it, some people seem to think that it's kind of like the game which is the worst out of the Metal Gear lineup, I don't know. So again, to my knowledge, Metal Gear Solid does exist for the remaster, and the ports do exist, but just like everything in life, until you hear Konami officially confirmed this stuff, take it with pinches of salt. I think, honestly, it's not going to be released this year or anything like that. So, I mean, yeah, I suspect it's going to be like 2021 we start to see official confirmation of this stuff anyhow. So with any luck, we do get confirmation. I mean, you know what, to be really honest, I wish we lived in, like, this bizarro world where we could literally just tweet the company and they would just tell you. Like, the level of secrecy sometimes in the game industry I think is kind of frustrating. I really wish we could just live in a society where you could just tweet the company and be like, hey, are you guys working on this? But yeah, we are. Cool, thanks. But instead, they'll deny it literally 5 seconds before they officially publish it, and it's so frustrating at times. So anyway, yeah, I'm just throwing that in. And now, on to the subject of Xbox. So how much cool stuff can you buy for $220 US? If you respond a hell of a lot of cool stuff, you'd be right. But you could also use it to buy one Seagate storage expansion card for the Xbox Series X. I've gone on record and said like 2 trillion times now that SSD storage for the next-gen consoles was never going to be cheap. And I don't believe that you're going to be spending $2.50 to get a reasonable SSD for your PlayStation 5. Because remember, while technically it's not, proprietary, you need to get a drive which is fast enough to deal with the fact that the PS5 SSD has a priority queue system which is more advanced than a traditional desktop SSD. Now you can get around that quite happily by having a really fast SSD, around 7 Gbps will do, but if you don't have that, it's just not going to be sufficient. So Sony essentially need to ensure that the drive matches up, so there will be testing, and Sony will basically let you know that these drives are compatible. With the Xbox, obviously they have a proprietary solution, but it's going to cost you $220 US. Ouchie. And again, I suspect it's not going to be much cheaper for the PlayStation 5 titles either. So Jason Ronald has actually provided some information as to this, and there's actually kind of a couple of interesting bits of info here, a couple of tidbits. Jason said, and I quote, "The Xbox Velocity architecture is a key innovation in our next-generation consoles, delivering unprecedented speed and performance, enabling transformative gaming experiences never seen before on console. This level of consistent, sustained performance requires advanced components which come at a higher cost than traditional hard drives or SSDs, often found in PCs. By partnering with the industry leader in Seagate, we work together to deliver an expandable storage solution which delivers identical performance at the lowest cost possible and available this holiday." End quote. Clearly, SSD prices will probably go down and storage capacities will also increase as well. But his quote here does seem to indicate that there is some type of cool stuff actually on the SSD. Unfortunately, he didn't provide that much insight into what it could possibly be. But it basically does seem to be that the expansion card is not just a simple piece of plastic. There is something else to it. Again, however, you need one of these SSDs if you want to be able to play the Xbox Series X or Series S games. So basically, if you have a USB 3.1 drive, you can play Xbox One, Xbox 360, and of course the original Xbox games, but you are unable to play any title which is for the Series X. Now you can swap games backwards and forwards, so if, for example, you've downloaded, 100 gigabytes of game data and you're like, well, yeah, I don't want to download that again because my internet is going to cry because I've got data caps, you could just copy it onto a USB hard drive, but you wouldn't be able to load it. It will be like, nope, don't have the bandwidth there, buddy. So you would have to copy it back, which means data management, of course, would be a thing. Your Seagate card or the internal drive of the Xbox can be used to obviously play Xbox Series X games as well as S. However, you could also choose to use it for Xbox One or 360 or original games. I suspect most folks will probably not do that because it's just going to eat storage space up from something which is basically, you're precious. You're basically like Gollum with Lord of the Rings holding it and saying, "My precious." So yeah, I suspect that won't be a thing. And Jason has also reiterated that the Series S actually has less storage requirements, despite the fact that the drive inside it is half the size, because the textures will not be so big. So essentially, because the target is only up to 1440p, what we have are textures which average out, game sizes, average out to be 30% smaller. So that's actually quite a significant reduction in size and does help make the 500GB SSD more palatable. I'm curious how many folks, though, who have purchased a PS5 or an Xbox Series X, assuming you actually managed to get a pre-order in, which was a fun, happy time. I'm curious how many of you will upgrade your storage immediately, or whether you're just like, nope. I'm just gonna make do with the small amount of space that I have. Because again, it's not like the storage is cheap. But with all of that said, thank you very much for watching the video. The normal stuff, like, share, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.